two species of chough constitute the genus Pyrrhocorax of the Corvidae family of birds. These are the red-billed chough, and the Alpine yellow-billed chough. The white-winged chough of Australia, despite its name, is a member of the family Corcoracidae and only distantly related. The choughs have black plumage and brightly colored legs, feet, and bills, and are resident in the mountains of southern Eurasia and North Africa. They have long broad wings and perform spectacular aerobatics. Both species pair for life and display fidelity to the breeding sites, which are usually caves or crevice in a cliff face. They build a lined stick nest and lay 3 to 5 eggs. They feed, usually in flocks, on short grazed grassland, taking mainly invertebrate prey, supplemented by vegetable material or food from human habitation, especially in winter. Changes in agricultural practices, which have led to local population declines and range fragmentation, are the main threats to this genus, although neither species is threatened globally. Taxonomy. The first member of the genus to be described was the red-billed chough, named as Pyrrhocorax by Linnaeus in his Systema Naturae in 1758. His genus contained species that had a long curved bill and a short, blunt tongue. These included the northern bald ibis and the hoopoe, birds now known to be completely unrelated to the choughs. The Alpine chough was described as Corvus graculus by Linnaeus in the 1766 edition of the Systema Naturae. Although Corvus is the crow genus to which the choughs relatives belong, they were considered sufficiently distinctive to be moved to the new genus, Pyrrhocorax, by English ornithologist Marmaduke Tunstall in his 1771 Ornithologia Britannica. The genus name is derived from ancient Greek pyrrhos and corax. Chough was originally an alternative onomatopoeic name for the jackdaw, Corvus monedula, based on its call. The similar red-billed chough, formerly particularly common in Cornwall, became known initially as Cornish chough, and then just chough, the name transferring from one species to the other. The fossil record from the Pleistocene of Europe includes a form similar to the Alpine chough, and sometimes categorized as an extinct subspecies of that bird, and a prehistoric form of the red-billed chough, P. primigenius. There are 8 generally recognized extant subspecies of red-billed chough, and 2 of Alpine, although all differ only slightly from the nominate forms. The greater subspecies diversity in the red-billed species arises from an early divergence of the Asian and geographically isolated Ethiopian races. For the western forms, the closest relative of the choughs as indicated by a study of molecular phylogeny is the ratchet-tailed tree, and they form a clade that is sister to the remaining living members of the Corvidae. The genus Pyrrhocorax species differ from Corvus in that they have brightly colored bills and feet, smooth, not scaled tarsi and very short, dense nasal feathers. Choughs have uniformly black plumage lacking any paler areas as seen in some of the relatives. The two Pyrrhocorax are the main hosts of 2 specialist chough fleas, Frontocilla frontalis and Ephletis, not normally found on other corvids. The Australian white-winged chough, Corcorax melon or hamphos, despite its similar shape and habits, is only distantly related to the true choughs, and is an example of convergent evolution. Distribution and habitat. Choughs breed in mountains, from Morocco and Spain eastwards through southern Europe and the Alps, across Central Asia and the Himalayas to western China. The Alpine chough is also found in Corsica and Crete, and the red-billed chough has populations in Ireland, the UK, the Isle of Man, and 2 areas of the Ethiopian highlands. Both species are non-migratory residents throughout the range, only occasionally wandering to neighboring countries. These birds are mountain specialists, although red-billed choughs also use coastal sea cliffs in Ireland, Great Britain, and Brittany. Feeding on adjacent short-grazed grassland are macaque. The small population on La Palma, one of the Canary Islands, is also coastal. The red-billed chough more typically breeds in mountains above 1,200 meters in Europe, 2,000 meters in North Africa and 2,400 meters in the Himalayas. In that mountain range it reaches 6,000 meters in the summer, and has been recorded at 7,950 meters altitude on Mount Everest. The Alpine chough breeds above 1,260 meters in Europe, 2,880 meters in Morocco, and 3,500 meters in the Himalayas. It has nested at 6,500 meters, higher than any other bird species, and it has been observed following mountaineers ascending Mount Everest at an altitude of 8,200 meters. Where the two species occur in the same mountains, the alpine species tends to breed at a higher elevation than its relative, since it is better adapted for a diet at high altitudes. Description: the choughs are medium-sized corvids. The red-billed chough is 39–40 centimeters in length with a 73 to 90 centimeters wingspan, and the alpine chough averages slightly smaller at 37 to 39 length with a 75 to 85 centimeters wingspan. These birds have black plumage similar to that of many corvus crows, but they are readily distinguished from members of that genus by the brightly colored bills and legs. The alpine chough has a yellow bill and the red-billed chough has a long, curved red bill. Both species have red legs as adults. The sexes are similar, but the juvenile of each species has a duller bill and legs than the adult, and its plumage lacks the glossiness seen in older birds. Other physical distinctions are summarized in the table below. The two choughs are distinguishable from each other by the bill color, and in flight the long broad wings and short tail of the red-billed give it a silhouette quite different from its slightly smaller yellow bill. Relative: both species fly with loose, deep wing beats, and frequently use the maneuverability to perform acrobatic displays, soaring in the updrafts at cliff faces, then diving and rolling with fantail and folded wings. The red-billed chough's loud, ringing choughs call is similar in character to that of other corvids, particularly the jackdaw, although it is clearer and louder than the call of that species. In contrast, the alpine chough has rippling preep and whistled sweo calls quite unlike the crows. Small subspecies of both choughs have higher frequency calls than larger races, as predicted by the inverse relationship between body size and frequency. Behavior and ecology. Breeding choughs are monogamous and show high partner and site fidelity. Both species build a bulky nest of roots, sticks and plant stems lined with grass, fine twiglets or hair. It is constructed on a ledge, in a cave or similar fissure in a cliff face, or in man-made locations like abandoned buildings, quarries or dams. Red-billed will also sometimes use occupied buildings such as Mongolian monasteries. The choughs are not colonial, although in suitable habitat several pairs may nest in close proximity. Both species lay 3 to 5 normally whitish eggs, blotched with brown or gray, which are incubated by the female alone. The chicks hatch after 2 to 3 weeks. Red-billed chough chicks are almost naked, but the chicks of the higher altitude alpine chough hatch with a dense covering of natal down. The chicks are fed by both parents and fledge in 29 to 31 days after hatching for alpine chough, and 31 to 41 days for redbill. The Alpine chough lays its eggs about 1 month later than its relative, although breeding success and reproductive behavior are similar. The similarities between the two species presumably arose because of the same strong environmental constraints on breeding behavior. The first-year survival rate of the juvenile red-billed chough is 72.5%, and for the Alpine it is 77%. The annual adult survival rate is 83 to 92% for Alpine, but is unknown for redbill. Feeding in the summer, both choughs feed mainly on invertebrates such as beetles, snails, grasshoppers, caterpillars, and fly larvae. Ants are a favored food of the red-billed chough. Prey items are taken from short-grazed pasture, or in the case of coastal populations of red-billed chough, areas where plant growth is hindered by exposure to coastal salt spray or poor soils. The chough's bill may be used to pick insects off the surface, or to dig for grubs and other invertebrates. The red-billed chough typically excavates to 2 to 3 centimeters in the thin soils of its feeding areas, but it may dig to 10 to 20 centimeters in suitable conditions. Plant matter is also eaten, and red-billed chough will take fall-in grain where the opportunity arises. It has been reported as damaging barley crops by breaking off the ripening heads to extract the corn. Alpine choughs rely more on fruit and berries at times of year when animal prey is limited, and will readily supplement the winter diet with food provided by tourist activities in mountain regions, including ski resorts, refuse dumps and picnic areas. Both Pyrrhocorax species feed in flocks on open areas, often some distance from the breeding cliffs, particularly in winter. Feeding trips may cover 20 kilometers distance and 1,600 meters in altitude. In the Alps, the development of skiing above 3,000 meters has enabled more alpine choughs to remain at high levels in winter. Where the ranges overlap, the two chough species may feed together in the summer, although there is only limited competition for food. An Italian study showed that the vegetable part of the winter diet for the red-billed chough was almost exclusively gauger bulbs, whilst the alpine chough took berries and hips. In June, red-billed choughs fed mainly on caterpillars, whereas alpine choughs ate crane fly pupae. Later in the summer, the alpine chough consumed large numbers of grasshoppers, while the red-billed chough added crane fly pupae, fly larvae and beetles to its diet. In the eastern Himalayas in November, alpine choughs occur mainly in juniper forests where they feed on juniper berries, differing ecologically from the red-billed choughs in the same region and at the same time of year, which dig for food in the soil of the village's terraced pastures. Natural threats. Predators of the choughs include the peregrine falcon, golden eagle and Eurasian eagle owl, while the common raven will take nestlings. In northern Spain, red-billed choughs preferentially nest near lesser kestrel colonies. The falcon, which eats only insects, provides a degree of protection against larger predators, and the chough benefits in terms of a higher breeding success. The red-billed chough is occasionally parasitized by the great spotted cuckoos, a brood parasite for which the Eurasian magpie is the primary host. The choughs host bird fleas, including 2 frontocilla species which are Pyrrhocorax specialists. Other parasites recorded on choughs include Acestochoanoterenia pyrenica and various species of chewing lice in the genera Bruelia, Menacanthus and Philopterus. Blood parasites such as Plasmodium have been found in red-billed choughs, but this is uncommon, and apparently does little harm. Parasitism levels are much lower than in some other passerine groups. Status. Both Pyrrhocorax species have extensive geographical ranges and large populations. Neither is thought to approach the thresholds for the global population decline criteria of the IUCN Red List. and they are therefore evaluated as being of least concern. However, some populations, particularly on islands such as Corsica and La Palma, are small and isolated. Both choughs occupied more extensive ranges in the past, reaching to more southerly and lower altitude areas than at present, with the Alpine chough breeding in Europe as far south as southern Italy, and both the decline and range fragmentation continue. Red-billed choughs have lost ground in most of Europe, and Alpine choughs have lost many breeding sites in the east of the continent. In the Canary Islands, the red-billed chough is now extinct on 2 of the islands on which it formerly bred, and the Alpine was lost from the archipelago altogether. The causes of the decline include the fragmentation and loss of open grasslands to scrub human activities such as the construction of ski resorts, and a longer-term threat comes from global warming, which would cause the species-preferred alpine climate zone to shift to higher, more restricted areas, or locally to disappear entirely. The red-billed chough, which breeds at lower levels, has been more affected by human activity, and the declines away from its main alpine breeding areas have seen it categorized as vulnerable in Europe. Only in Spain is it still common, and it has recently expanded its range in the country by nesting in old buildings in areas close to its traditional mountain breeding sites. In culture, further information. Red-billed chough. Although these are mainly mountain species with limited interactions with humans, the red-billed chough has a coastal population in the far west of its range, and has cultural connections, particularly with Cornwall, where it appears on the Cornish coat of arms. A legend from that county says that King Arthur did not die but was transformed into a red-billed chough, and hence killing this bird was unlucky. The red-billed chough was formerly reputed to be a habitual thief of small objects from houses, including burning wood or lighted candles, which it would use to set fire to haystacks or thatched roofs. As a high-altitude species with limited contact with humans until the development of mountain tourism activities, the alpine chough has little cultural significance. It was, however, featured together with its wild mountain habitat in Olivier Messiaen's catalogue So, a piano piece written in 1956–58. Le Chough des Alpes is the opening piece of Book 1 of the work. A group of choughs may be referred to fancifully or jocularly as a chattering or clattering.